very close to home because I've dealt with building dashboards with various and numerous data sources, and it is not easy to get all of those data sources into one dashboard or one data visualization or even one large report. So before I bring on our guest, Daniel Buchuk from Rivery, I actually want to ask those who have joined us live, how many data sources does your company rely on for your business intelligence reporting? Or if you're not working with a company, how many data sources do you personally rely on when you're building a dashboard? So I'd love to see those numbers come through, and I'll share them as they come in. And I'm actually going to go ahead and bring in Daniel Buchuk here. Hello, Daniel.
Hi, Kate.
Welcome to our show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm super excited about the session. I think you came up with the title. I love that title. I could not have come up with it better myself. So I have to give you credit up front.
You said what the heck, but I had other colorful words in mind, but I don't think they're allowed.
Yes, you did. That's why we went with the symbols, right? So we can let people use their imagination. So before we get into the topic, I'd love for you to just give an intro, tell people what is it that you do, who are you, and what do you do for Rivery?
So my name is Daniel, and I do marketing for Rivery. Kind of like my background is in marketing, communications, so looking after things like content, thought leadership, things like that. All the way to product marketing. And just to give you a really brief intro about Rivery, which is a pretty new data management platform, and in essence is there to simplify data processes. People rely, like you said, on many data sources, and there's a massive gap in terms of bringing them together, streamlining all the operations, orchestrating them so that they're all in sync and accessible to everyone. And that's what Rivery does in a nutshell. I like how one of our colleagues defined it last week, who called it almost like a control tower for your data. So there's all these disparate data sources. Some are internal, some are from third parties. And I think what Rivery does is being able to group them and make sense of all the data. So yes, one big part is the integration, but then there's also other stages, which are transformation and manipulating the data, so it's in the optimal place, in the optimal way to then showcase it, use it for reporting, machine learning, visualization, etc.
Yeah, and I think the name Rivery, it immediately helps me picture all the data sources flowing from different streams into a massive river. Not sure if that was the reason for calling it Rivery, but it's definitely what I imagine.
Absolutely. I mean, even inside the platform, we call each data stream rivers, right? So it's all about building the most flawless data pipelines. It's funny because that's how it should be. It should be like a stream of data and a river, and it should be ongoing. And now, as companies and whatever the industry you're in, everything is becoming more real time and more immediate. It's no longer about having once a month a report or having a dashboard that can really be unlaid down there. So everything needs to be kind of flawlessly streamed into your big ocean of knowledge. And in a way, that's kind of that single source of truth that companies have in their data warehouse and wherever they're unifying all their insights and data.
Absolutely. So we have data lake, now we have data river, then we have the data ocean. I love this. It's all about water.
Get your bathing suit.
Exactly.
Jump in.
Yes, jump in, dive in. So we've got a few responses and for those tuning in right now, the question was, how many data sources does your company or do you rely on for building your dashboards or business intelligence reports? So Gary Clark, far too many. Ron says 4. Okay. Somebody else said 10 or more. Russell says no. Number of data sources range from as few as 1 to around 100, depending on the scope. So needless to say, the higher the number, the more complicated the maintenance and troubleshooting. And then Manan said Rivery is a good solution. So he's lately in a lot of CVs, he's been seeing the mention of the same. So
we like Manan.
Yes, Manan, thanks for adding that. Okay, so Daniel, what do you think of the responses in terms of number of data sources? Is that around the same number that you've been seeing? Or I know you shared an interesting statistic with me before we started, so maybe share that.
I'll check. I mean, from that report I just read, it's kind of like it averages on around 400 data sources, which, which is fine. But then it greatly depends on the type of company you're in. If you're like a marketing and advertising agency having to connect 20, 30, 100 Facebook accounts into your data warehouse is different than if you're like maybe like a smaller company that relies on fewer things. So, it's on the one hand is the number of data sources, also like the amount of data that you need to gather from those sources, and then the parameters. It can get quite tricky, right? When you have like so many data sources like that, I can't remember the name, the person that commented too many. How do you make sense of it? How do you logically create KPIs that give you meaningful business insight from far too many data sources, however that might be? And I think like in a way that's why we're in business, because we're helping those companies make sense of all those sources from the beginning, which is kind of like connecting and aggregating and just pulling them all together under one roof, to the kind of like the more like creating the logics and making sense of it, so that is always up to date and streamed flawlessly.
Yeah,
there's
absolutely.
also one other word, sorry, that someone said that really stuck to me, which is maintenance. And I think that's a really interesting point, because many people initially don't realize that the upkeep that those data sources sometimes is actually even bigger than the initial connection or integration. So it's interesting that someone mentioned that.
Yeah, it's one thing to get the thing connected. It's another to make sure it's troubleshooting and maintenance and all of that.
Right.
So, question here. Now, you said that it's about 400, right? And that might have included, very large companies or very data intense companies. And I'm assuming the number is lower on average if you look across the board on all companies, but it's still far too many, like Gary Clark mentioned in the beginning. And the question for you is, do you think this number is going to decrease or increase in the next 5 years, the way things are going?
It's going to increase. I mean, people are so hungry for data. Sorry for throwing another statistic at you, but they said, so like, they said that actually was a research from IBM that said that 90% of all the data in the world right now was created over the past 2 years. So that's crazy.
Wow.
In 24 months accounts for 90% of the world's data. So that's just a great indicator of the appetite for data, which, by the way, doesn't necessarily mean that there's good insights, because number one, lots of the data doesn't go into good analysis. And also, if you don't connect all the dots correctly and efficiently, you just have like raw data and a ton of information. Think of how much information any company has about their Facebook users that they never use, or even from their email communications or from HR, from support. There's so many different data points that we just don't really know what to do with it. And kind of like the next challenge is to just turn it into meaningful models that just give you like the API that you need to grow on. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from my personal experience, I know I've worked with a lot of data in the past, and I know you can get insights from separate data sources, but the magic really comes together is when you bring all those data sources together, so you get different types of insights when you're able to connect all of that. So I think let's shift the focus and say I'm a company, I've got my hands on the best data visualization software that's out there, right? I'm not going to name company names because there's so many great ones out there. I use probably most of them on a regular basis. So what do I do next? How do I actually get all my data sources into that software?
Well, most companies now, obviously, like they get the data first into a warehouse, right? Like that central repository of data, and mostly these days it's on the cloud. I was going to say, it's funny that you said that you didn't want to mention, like data visualization tools, but one of the great things about Rivery is that we're platform agnostic, both on the side of the database and data warehouse, so supporting all the popular, whether you're in AWS or with Google or with Snowflake, and then also with the visualization, which are actually our partners, people like the Tableau, Looker, etc. So we're working with them, because what happens is that you buy your brand new exciting visualization tool, and then right away you go like, oh, so wait, how do I connect the dots? And it's funny because it's actually similar to, I'm not sure if anyone is the marketing world, like listening, I love to hear what people say, but it's also the same feeling that I got when you get like a new CRM platform, like a Salesforce or a HubSpot, and it's like, okay, brilliant. So like, I'm going to sign in and everything's going to be brilliant and everything's going to be flawless. And then you realize that you need like either a PhD or like all these other tools that help you make it happen. So Rivery is kind of like that tool that helps you pull in all the data into your warehouse, into your data warehouse, which then is connected to your dashboard. So it's kind of like is the part in the middle that just helps you build that bridge. And it's simple. And the problem is like when you don't have it, it means that you have to develop those API connectors yourself, which for some companies is fine, but because they have the resource in terms of like R&D and it's fine, you know, they can be developed. It's not a secret. But if you want to do it fast and efficiently, and also to have a solution that is always up to date, because also each connector goes through changes, so it requires the maintenance. Let's say Google advertising, right? There's a new version coming out all the time, so it means that you have to redo the connector. Then also means that if you need a connector, a new connector, for example, marketing teams, constantly there's a new platform, so it's a never-ending game, which means that that's why it can be really useful to have a platform that just lets you plug and play, and right away you have all your data in the data warehouse, and then it goes into your visualization tool.
On that, that make versus build versus buy decision, right? When do you think a company should actually build their own data connectors, and when do you think it makes more sense for them to use a platform like Rivery to just plug and play?
I mean, they might want to build something because it's really not available in the market. You know, for example, we have like over 100 off the shelf, 100 API connectors, with the most popular one, and it's a list that is always growing. But some companies might just decide to do it in-house because they want to manage it, they want to develop it, and they want to make sure that all the parameters and everything is like a bespoke solution for their analytics. The same way that they might want to build, the visualization tool. So
that's true.
So there's always the case, and funnily enough, I think it's also the type of solutions that many times I call it like a boomerang, because initially they might think, no, I'll build it, it's okay. But then 3 months down the line, they'll be like, oh, actually, I didn't realize that I needed to update that connector twice. And I also have these 3 new data sources that the marketing team just brought. So it's just having the ability to just sit back and do your work without worrying of the stuff that also is not, most of the times, is not the job of the BI or data team. So they always have to ask for favors, for developers. And that's why, like, in a way, Rivery just helps that, bridge that gap, because it doesn't require any coding skills. You just plug and play, connect, and you're not reliant on additional resource from the business, and developers can focus on developing their products, and data BI people can just focus on getting the insights easily.
Right, absolutely. So I'm actually gonna share my screen because I have I went to your site just to take a look at the types of data connectors that you guys have, and I see there's a long list. Let's go on marketing, just because you mentioned marketing earlier, right? Just to see, so you've got Amazon. How many data connectors do you guys have as of now?
So I think there's over 100, but that list is constantly growing and changing. It's constantly evolving. But yeah, like marketing databases, CRM, support, all types of connections to obviously the most popular platforms used by our clients. But then again, we're always like wanting to hear what people need, and we also have like an API programs to create other connectors. And there's even a REST API. So if the connector is not there, there are ways to pull the data from those sources as well. At the moment, obviously, like with mobile marketing having such impact, there's many connectors in the attribution, and also like from the app stores that have been like increasingly important for some of our customers.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how do you decide which data connectors to add, since you're adding several, like you mentioned?
Demand.
Yeah. Just like any other product.
Yeah, so which are the most used advertising platforms, which are the most used CRMs, which are the most used, so like it's all in the category, and always growing, and always loving to hear what people want, what people need.
Yeah, so I think maybe for those who joined us live, maybe let us know what are some popular data connectors that you use or have used, and it'll be interesting to see if it's already on that list. And I'm sure Daniel memorized all the data connectors. He'll just know. So, do you want to do your demo now? I think the moment we've all been waiting for is to take a peek at how Rivery works.
Yeah, well, it's not so much of a demo. It's just like a quick.
It's a preview, yeah. Just shows the behind the scenes footage.
Kind of like so people see and get familiar, because I'm actually not a technical person. So I think like if I don't find this phasing and scary, I don't think anyone else should. So this is what the platform looks like, and this is this is the dashboard, and let's say like you see the cold rivers, and let's say no wait. I'm just going to choose one river. So for example, a popular one. So let's go with like Facebook.
Okay.
So there's like very few steps. So like you just put your river name. So like you decide what you call it. And then like the step one is to pull the data from your account. Obviously, like I've already established the connection, but creating a new connection is pretty much like signing it with your Facebook account. And then you just choose all the fields that you like to add. Here, for example, I'm in the pages section of Facebook social insights, but you also have the video, post, everything. You just choose whatever are the fields that you like to add. And then after that, you just choose your target table. Here is Snowflake, but because it's set up, but it could be Amazon or it could be Google Cloud, wherever it is. And then literally this, and that's it. I mean, like in the step 3 is the column mapping. So essentially, the column mapping is just taking the fields that you selected in step 1 and mapping them in the structure of your target table in your data warehouse, so you can see what the structure looks like before you execute the pipeline itself. Rivery will actually do the mapping automatically for you, and that's it. So then all you have to do is schedule, so that you can choose the frequency of like how often you want that.
Okay, and you'll pull it in. What's the most frequent schedule that you can set?
It depends, because it depends on the size, on the volume of data and the data source. So usually like marketing want really agile data, most quickly, or if you're in an agency, but it depends. It could be daily, it could be weekly, it could be every hourly, it could be whatever you want.
Real-time data is the best. I just love it. Like Google Analytics, for example, I can sit there and watch the number of people be on my site and leave my site. It's just like a movie for me. So.
Yeah, it's true. So like that's kind of like the goal, and kind of like here when I went to the source, obviously I chose Facebook, but again, kind of like the same list that you saw before. It's just as simple as selecting your connector from the list of everything, whether it's marketing, analytics, CRM platforms. So it's as simple as like creating your river, choosing what you want to pull. Where you're gonna send it to, then Rivery will create the tables for you, unless they're already there, right, in your data warehouse, and that's it. And then you just hit run. So that's the mini demo.
I love it. Thank you for that. Question from Susan here: if you're joining multiple data sources, is there a data quality issue? Do you have any feedback?
Yeah, actually, that's a really good question, because we do have alerts. The alert is in so we do have alerts. So if anything gets broken here, like notification on failure, on warnings, so you will be notified if your river is disrupted, and that's actually a very important thing. Yeah,
because you want to know if something's breaking.
Yeah, before it's time to present the data or to have that boardroom meeting or whatever.
Of course, absolutely. I mean, I can definitely see the use, because like I said, in my past, I've had to deal with several data sources, and like it could be random Excel sheets with the Salesforce data, with Google Analytics data, and it all has to come together. And I guess as long as you have a unique identifier, you're able to join all of those data sources in Rivery, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then do you also join this with the data visualization tools? I know you mentioned you partnered with them, but does it kind of plug into the Tableau, Power BI?
Yeah, of course. So we have like a few partners specifically. So I mean, we work with many. But for example, at the moment, we've been doing a lot of work with Tableau and a lot of work with Looker. And actually, what's more, even like with Looker, we've even been creating things like what they call blocks. So social blocks that are specifically focused on social KPIs. So for marketing teams to already have the perfect combination of the social analytics. So they have Rivery plus Looker, and it's already off the shelf with all the right metrics, and it's very good.
Yeah, that's great. Question on the types of clients that you help, and I'm not looking for company names or anything like that, but just interesting to see, are these typically tech companies or consumer brands? What are the types of clients that use Rivery?
All sorts, actually. I mean, like there are 4 main use cases for Rivery, and kind of like, I know I'm kind of like taking it another way, but on the one hand, you have like people that are looking for like data migration to clouds.
Okay.
On the other hand is marketing analytics. There's a lot. So that might be like usually like big companies from enterprise or startups. Then also like multi-brand and multi-account. So it might be a big enterprise that have like a huge brand portfolio and they need like many, let's say like social accounts, analytics accounts, or it could also be marketing agencies. Actually, I'd love to know what industries the people listening are from. Like I would love to know if there are any agencies or like marketing teams, like what's kind of like the industry. And then also there's the ETL, right? So like as part of the like a cloud data platform, like people use that as an ETL. So then kind of like going back to your question is all sorts of companies, many marketing teams. The thing is like also startups these days, many startups use a ton of data. So just because they're like small team doesn't mean that they're like beasts in terms of like the amount of data they use or like the traffic. So that's why I don't think it's even, there's like some real powerhouses there that are like startups, but also work with huge enterprises, big brands that need to manage tons of marketing data, all sorts.
Yeah, okay. We've got, Susan was asking what size company. I was just thinking, you mentioned there are some large companies using this, but I would see that there's a need for startups as well, like you mentioned, because they don't have that large developer team that can build custom connectors and get all that going. So I could see the need there.
Exactly. They usually have they need the developers. They're always like overworked trying to build the product. So like the last thing they want is for the data analyst or the BI manager to just land this on your desk saying, I need you to build this API for me, update that one. So, and in a way, it actually goes back to something that you were discussing last week in your webinar about data literacy, right? Like people are expected to, people should be able to access this. It should be like almost like more democratic, right? Like it should, people have all these tools at their disposal, but almost like their hands are tied because they're not a developer. And I think like that's the job that we kind of like doing in simplifying it. And I actually really like one of a metaphor that our CEO Itamar uses, which is that, maybe a decade ago, we started having all these amazing visualization tools. It was kind of like a revolution, right? When data became so beautiful. And, like you said, like the Tableaus, Lucas, like there's all these like stunning charts. And then like a little later, there was the cloud revolution, which is so amazing because it gives people the freedom, the flexibility to scale. They only pay for what they use. Unlimited scope, accessibility, everything you want. But then there's this gap that they have like a Ferrari, but it's like parked in a parking lot. They cannot make the most of either the visualization tool because they're not able to orchestrate everything, and they're not able to make the most of the cloud, which is at the fingertips. So I think like that's gonna be kind of like the next stage in the data world, kind of like being like a really good. Just making your data work for you, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm picturing a Ferrari boat. I'm not sure if there's a thing, and it's docked, and you finally built the rivers to be able to let that boat loose.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, I know. We've got some answers here. So David's in healthcare. We've got
Yep.
Loader, industries, me in construction. Julia, investment management. LinkedIn user, it's when they have their set to private, is a marketing company. Hurock is life sciences. And David said that Rivery could be a fit for all industries depending on data strategy. Yeah,
Correct. Correct. I mean, it's correct. The thing is, most of the industries that that you've mentioned, we work with, and many of what company doesn't use, I don't know, let's say like Google Analytics, or if you're like in the online world, which company doesn't advertise on Facebook or Google, or doesn't have a CRM platform. People need data. People need all these sources, and even from like email data, spreadsheet data. So everything needs to be like aligned, and combining it strategically is what's going to give you those insights that are going to make you grow.
What was interesting is when you mentioned the large corporations that have multiple brands within one umbrella, because they all have different, let's say, social media accounts, and I think it's kind of impossible to get every single one of those. And when you mentioned the 400 sources, right, it doesn't mean it's 400 data connectors. It's just they might be considering the 15 Facebook accounts that they have to manage as 15 different data sources, and putting that all together. I could just imagine how powerful that would be.
Yeah, and in a way, it's a similar challenge for the ones that agencies have, because if you're in a marketing agency and need to manage data from the Facebook accounts of, I don't know, 50 clients, 100 clients, then it can also become a nightmare. And the beauty is that if you have an integration tool that lets you only plug in one and then automatically everything is done. Actually, like my colleague Kevin did like a great case study with one of our clients. And it used to take them 72 hours to put together a weekly or monthly report from a client. So it's all about taking the pain out of putting that data together and just like saving people's time, because there's also some stuff that you can just throw money at a problem. But I think like the most valuable thing that Rivery save is time, saving developers time, making sure the BI people or the data analysts spend time building the models, analyzing the data, looking for the insights, not just trying to make it all connect.
Yeah, absolutely. I think on time, I wanted to also ask the live audience that's joined us, what percent of your time do you typically spend on, data prep or getting all those data sources together? Because it would be interesting. I know in data science, there's a common percentage that's thrown out, like 80% of a data scientist's job is getting the data prepared or wrangled or cleaned or whatever, checking the quality. So I think, Rivery can cut down on that time, but I am curious to see if that 80% metric still holds.
Yeah.
Actually,
I have another statistics on that.
This should have been called the statistics from Daniel.
Well, it's a data conversation, so I cannot only talk about like Ferrari boats. So it's like 30% of data scientists said that they spend between half to 3/4 of their working time on research and development versus putting time into new models into production. So, data science.
I wanted to say 30% spend about 75% of their time doing data cleaning. Does that mean the other 70% spend all their time doing the data cleaning?
I don't know. That's a good one. But and it's not just about the job of data scientists. I think like there's a broader thing about I think like kind of like going back to like data literacy and accessibility, because I think like when there's so much work around these processes, it also makes people fearful. And in addition, for those big companies and big enterprises, another issue is actually data siloing, because then actually like everyone develops their own thing, and companies that have like different brand portfolios, everyone trying to figure out their way, and also that leads to like lots of wasting time and also like inefficiencies, which in huge companies, a change that unifies and aligns all the data can be like a game changer for them. So yeah. And in terms of sharing, I've got another one, which is that only 16% of organizations can say that 75% or more employees have access to company data and analytics.
Yeah, that's a small percentage. So less than 20% of people at a company basically have access to enough data to make decisions.
Yeah. And we hear so much these terms thrown at us, right? Like we're data driven and we only
data informed, data literate, yes.
Exactly. So everyone is pitching their businesses as these like data gurus, and we don't move a finger if it's not backed by data. But then actually, that's not really the truth. And anyway, and it's also about the quality of the data and the insights and the KPIs. But that's kind of like another conversation. But I do think the data literacy is kind of like a big frontier. And platform like ours or like many others are just helping build that bridge between people and the data. It's just getting them closer to their insights without having to do all these convoluted processes.
Yeah, why do you think that percentage is so low, right? If all these companies are claiming to be data driven, do you think it's the folks that say, oh no, I trust my gut, I've done this for 25 years this way, so why should I have to trust data? Or do you think is it technological? Is it too difficult for some people to get on board with looking at data on their own? What are your thoughts? Why are we not more data driven?
Well, I think it's still like the inertia that there is one team responsible for data. I mean, I know from my personal experience, right? Like you always have like a central team that almost become the gatekeepers for data and like the ultimate source. And I think like more and more is becoming less centralized and people, but it's going to have to be it's going to be a slow transition. But, in my past, maybe like 15, 20 years ago, in my experience, there was like the research team in the big corporates I used to work for. And anything to do with a number, I would just go to them. Then actually, I think social media changed that a lot because then I started doing social campaigns, and because Facebook and Twitter, they started adding the dashboards, I felt empowered to bring the data to the table and to kind of like start analyzing it, even if it was just for one platform. But I think as people get more literate, I think that's going to change, and it should be easy to connect it, to slice it, to dice it, and in a way, it should be part of the professional curriculum, right? In the same way that you at some point taught how to use PowerPoint or like a presentation software, or I don't know if that's really old-fashioned. I don't know if anyone uses PowerPoint.
No, I kind of miss PowerPoint. It was like I used to do this for so many years. I lived and thought in PowerPoint. So now, yeah.
But you. At one point, you had to be PowerPoint literate, and now maybe you have to be like Slack literate, or you have to be like Google Analytics literate. It's not as intuitive as people think. It's not that you just there and everything is there. So so in the same way, I think like people are going to have to be more literate about the data sources, the data stack, and how to kind of like slice it and dice it to get the insights they need.
Yeah, absolutely. Just looking at the comments here. So Wouter says 80% sounds about right. Susan, it's my job, so all the time, so 100%. Oh. We've got AJ saying 80% sounds about right. See, I shouldn't have thrown a number out. Now everyone's saying that 80%. David says lots of dirty data. And LinkedIn user here says, I would say it's more of understanding the data. So yeah, I agree with that. Let me just see. There was another comment here on an 80-10 rule. Okay, so Russell, 10-80-10 rule, 0%. Okay, identification and acquisition of data, 80% of cleansing, structuring, and preparation of data, and then 10% creating the cosmetic vehicle or report. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, the structure and the preparation, exactly, and that's the type of stuff that so much time can be saved. Like it doesn't, even like looking at technology, even in that world, I bought a new Mac, so the way everything just syncs, the moment like your iPhone syncs with your, like, why is it so hard with data? You know what I mean? If you go and pay for something with your mobile phone, or just like look at your phone and download a subscription, why is the syncing not as simple? And yeah.
No, I know. I think we're getting there. I actually tried it with a few other individuals. I think they're making more progress and innovations in the data visualization, data analytics space, where now you can talk to your phone and it'll give you a chart. If you just ask how many sales did we make last year compared to today, and then it'll just build a chart for you. And there was even some talk about standardization of data visualization, like following exact standards, so you avoid misleading people. So yeah, that's a whole different discussion there.
Yeah, and it's getting more, and because it's getting more beautiful, I think like there's lots of great like mobile data visualization as well. It's going more mobile and it's more. I just think it's getting better and better. So I think it's also going to get simpler and simpler.
Yeah. Waters just said more like 81% and 11% project management. That doesn't add up, man. Where's the other? We're missing some percentages. I'm not going to do math on live television here, live LinkedIn TV. Okay, so I know we're kind of over time here, Daniel, but I wanted to ask, where can people go to continue the discussion or learn more about Rivery and kind of the work that you've been doing?
Many places. They can actually go to rivery.io, which is our website, and they can find like tons of stuff. They can also like try it right away. Either like book a demo in 20 minutes, you'll get like a very quick overview, see if it's the right fit, or just like start your free trial right away and just give it a go. You can also email me, daniel@rivery.io. And that's it. Also, contact@rivery.io if you have like any other questions, technical questions, concerns. But yeah, I think there's many places. I think on our website there's also like great resources actually. So if people go to our blog or case studies, I think they're really gonna find like really interesting insights about what's right for them or companies and issues that they can relate to.
And is that where they can find the statistics? Because Susan asked where you're getting the statistics from. So
actually, yes, many of them I got from like a great ebook that my colleague Kevin put together. And you should definitely, you should share maybe you can even share the link on the thread.
Sure.
There's an ebook on like 5 data integration process you can automate right now. So save time, integrate, automate, and you'll get lots of wonderful statistics to go with it.
Perfect, awesome. Okay, I'm sharing that in the comments as we speak so people can go and check that out. And Daniel, thank you so much for your time. It was really an insightful session. Thank you.
Thank you so much.